welcome Investor Roundtable. I would like to give each of you an opportunity to introduce yourselves and your funds. Yahal, we'll start with you and then work our way down.
So, good afternoon. I know it's most probably towards the end of the day, so it's a difficult time. Yahal Zilka, founder of Magma Venture Partners, 19 years in the professional investment venture business, investing primarily in early stage opportunities, in principle in ICT and information communication technology, quite broad, but a thematic investor. So believe in identifying the big trends and try to identify them early.
Amalia?
Hi, I'm Amalia Bryl. I'm the founder and managing partner at EdVantage. And actually, EdVantage is the only fund that focus exclusively on learning technologies that have the power to solve the ever-changing needs of the workforce. Earlier today, I heard frame of my industry that somebody from BrainPop, I think, coined. Humanware, I like it. So we are in the deal of humanware, and we are investing in the interface of higher ed, adult learning, until lifelong learner, corporate learning, corporate training, customer training, early stage mainly, and I'm very happy to have both of you over here. Maybe you'll join us in this.
Thank you, Amalia. So my name is Moshe Zilberstein. I'm with Norwest Venture Partners. Norwest is a global fund based out of the United States. We have offices in India and in Israel. We invest about $7.5 billion. Our latest fund is 1.5, so a large firm and operating in Israel for about 10 years. Glad to be here.
There's a bird in the ceiling somewhere that I think has become a lot smarter, having hung out here all afternoon. So thanks for helping us to get a little more familiar with who's on the panel. I'm not sure if you heard the chat I had with Scott Kai from TAL from China. TAL is a $23 billion market cap education company that generates close to $2 billion a year, and they're, over the last handful of years, have been investing $300 million a year in minority stakes and M&A. In the U.S., my partner Mikhail, I think tomorrow is going to provide an update of the U.S. market and some of the other markets around the world. What the audience will hear is it's literally it's a bull market, it's a gold rush. There's a tremendous amount of investment and investment for returns, not just social impact. In Israel and the VC community, what I've noticed over the years is there appears to be a bit of a reluctance to define education as an investable sector. And I've developed this theory that it's really a definitional problem, that because we're calling it EdTech and we're leading with ED, there's an impression that it's education, which is usually delivered in a classroom. And if it's in a classroom, it's usually for a mission, and that mission is philanthropic. If we change the definition to something more along the lines of what Amalia was talking about, focusing on human capital development, from cradle to grave, wherever that human capital resides, including in the workforce, does that change your interest in this sector as VCs who have been, for the most part, with the exception of Amalia, operating outside of the education sector? Moshe, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah, so I think you've got a very good point. But term human capital is a really broad term. And I think it speaks to things from experience to personality to creativity. I think that if we kind of narrow it back down to being more efficient at what it is that you do, I think that the answer becomes a very clear yes. We're seeing lots of big companies in Israel that focus specifically on improving efficiency at the workforce. So examples like Monday, right, which is a great tool for product managers, and even a company like Wix, which helps small business owners set up their business online. Companies that help QA guys test, like Apply Tools, and even in our personal portfolio we have Gong, which is a very essential tool for salespeople. So yeah, so I think the answer is yes if you broaden the definition.
Yahal?
So, yes, clearly, in order to get the venture community here involved, you need to broaden the broader definition in a way that will appeal to the local venture community. The venture community here, like any other venture community, and by the way, it's a relatively successful venture community in terms of in terms of its results, like the Chinese community, is very different, and you need to adopt also definitions to to the likes and to the strengths, and I'll be happy to elaborate there later what I think the Israeli strengths are and how that matches certain markets.
Okay, well, and we'll definitely get to that. Amalia, you've sort of been an insider. I think you, as we say in the U.S., drank the Kool-Aid a lot earlier. So as a player in the education market, EdTech market, who's been investing over the last couple of years, how do you view the VC community from the inside looking out? And do you believe that we've reached an inflection point where we can get past just purely investing for social impact and really focus more on ROI investing in Israel with this VC community?
Obviously, yes. Otherwise, I won't be here. But I can also, give at least 2 or 3 reasons that I think it's an inflection point at this moment. We all heard today, but we know it, that there is a shift from content, from knowledge to skills. And when you're talking about skills, of course, it's more global, less cultural dependent, and Israel is known for a big educator for skills. In the army, we have the largest school in Israel, which is the army. Takes kids at the age of 18 and in few months make them professional and expert in their field. But not only that, we give them other skills, the soft skills as we call it, that are very essential for this era. They know how to speak, they know how to express messages, they know how to lead others, they know how to work in teamwork, etc. So I think, and we do it with technology in many times, and I think like we did in cyber, we can do it in the learning processes and methodologies that we have in the army. The other thing that is the skills gap. We have corporates has the skin in the game now. They have spending lots of money in order to train their employee to get better managers. They understand there is a problem it's essential for their competitive advantage in the future. And the worker themselves know that if they will stop to learn, they will be not relevant anymore. So even in the demand side, we don't have to educate anymore. Something is happening. In that sense, for Israelis, it's easy relatively because we know how to sell to corporate already. The ecosystem is very developed in that sense. And I think the last thing that is not less important is the mature of the relevant technology like AI, machine learning. It's now a plug-and-play act. It's not in the domain of IBM, Google, Facebook, and Amazon anymore. So the entrepreneurial spirit can go to this field, and I'm sure that in the very near future we'll see a lot of Israelis in that field as well.
Yahal, I want to ask you, the reality is if you are investing in what I'll call human capital, there always is a mission towards that, whether you intend to or not, but if you're helping people improve their skills, you're doing something that's socially valuable by definition. My question to you is, do you feel like social mission and investing for financial returns, ROI, can have a symbiotic relationship, and could it have a multiplying effect? In other words, have you observed that if you have a management team that's really driven on a mission, they might be able to produce a better ROI for you?
Well, absolutely. And there are various investment models. I'm known as very heavily skewed on the people side in terms of my decision making, in terms of team. So whether it's the individual, whether it's the team, the team aspect, and their commitment, their determination, and really what they want to achieve. In most cases, the Israeli entrepreneurs really want to make an impact on the world. It's not, that element is so much more than the financial drive.
Moshe, I want to ask you a question about your relationship to the mothership in the U.S. NVP is one of the most active investors, at least from the U.S., in education, with investments like Udemy, which is an online course marketplace that has raised over $150, $170 million, I think is approaching $1 billion valuation. Turnitin, which was acquired for over $750 million and focuses on plagiarism detection and grading. And I think you also have an investment in Lumosity, which has raised over $75 million and has, I think, 85 million users around the world who train their brains with cognitive toys, with cognitive games online. So my question is, how does that activity in the U.S. influence the way you view the education sector here, if at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, first of all, the Israeli entity for Norwest is not separate from the American entity for Norwest. And in the venture side of business, we have very clear and simple rules that we play by. We're a large fund and we're looking for large and impactful businesses. So you mentioned Udemy. Udemy is a marketplace. It's a marketplace that connects basically people that want to teach with people that want to learn, and it's a big marketplace. It's a multi hundreds of millions of dollars of a marketplace, right? You talked about Lumosity. Lumosity is an application with unprecedented gross margins. So primarily, these businesses are good, large, big businesses. I don't see this being different in Israel. If we have a company, if we have an opportunity to get into a company in the space of education that's a big, large business, we will be glad to do so. I don't think we've seen such an opportunity yet.
You should hang out outside amongst the booths for a while, and perhaps that'll change. Amalia, since you have been actively investing over the last couple of years, and I think started with a fairly broad perspective, and perhaps have learned a lot of lessons over the last couple of years in terms of where you think the most attractive segments of this industry are as it relates to Israeli startups. Can you just comment on lessons learned and what gets you excited these days?
I truly believe we're in an inflection point. So this is exciting for me because I feel that we are creating a new ecosystem in Israel, a broader one. It's not schooling, it's learning, and looking at the human capital. And I think the technology is interesting enough that is relevant for learning. Machine learning, cognitive science, simulation, it's interesting enough to attract the entrepreneur that I think they can build leaders in their market, the right entrepreneurs. Nevertheless, I think that we have some knowledge about learning that we cannot, throw in the trash. We have to use it. But the process itself is changing. It's not only transformation of knowledge, it's really disrupting the way we learn. And we have to experiment and see what's worked. And I think the right place to start with from Israel is approaching the corporate world and the lifelong learners.
So speaking of workplace and corporate, Yahal, you invested in Worky, which I believe has been renamed Gloat. That's an AI-based platform which focuses on career discovery. Could you talk a little bit about that business, what got you excited about it, and how you expect it will scale?
So, as I mentioned earlier, what really excited me about it is, first of all, the team. So, once I really liked the entrepreneurs, but in addition to that, clearly the match and the space that they're trying to disrupt, and the HR space is there's so much to do there, and there's a lot to disrupt, and what really excited me was their previous history. On one hand, very deep technologists and machine learning guys, but also as a side job in their military service, they were responsible for recruiting in their elite units. And they brought into that many of the techniques and the methodologies that they've been using there. That was this combination of sort of semi-domain expertise with very, very deep technologists that adopted to that.
And is it a B2C model or a B2B model?
So that's a very good question. So because when the company started, it's basically sort of a marketplace where you have both sides to it. And that's really, really difficult. They're doing very well, by the way, in that. But we have been thinking how to make things easier. And recently we have added another area, which I believe may be much bigger than their existing business, is inner mobility and internal recruiting, not only external recruiting, and that's a much simpler model to implement and very lucrative.
Often there's a tension in a marketplace, particularly in the HR area, where you want to attract a lot of potential job candidates, so you allow the employers to come onto the platform for free so that you can attract the potential candidates, but the employers are the ones who have the money, and it's hard to then shift back to them and say, okay, now that we've built a big network based on your presence on the platform, we're going to start charging you. Is that a challenge that you've faced or believe you will face?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but I think the greater challenge is is getting the individuals on the platform. And that's what Gloat has done tremendously. And they managed, like what we did in, those of you that are familiar, I was the first investor in Waze, and it created some gamification aspects that bring in a lot of, a lot of the supply into the model.
I'm addicted to Waze, so thank you. Thank you for funding that. Moshe, I'd like to talk a little bit about Gong, which is also an AI-based solution focused on conversation intelligence. So please help us to understand, what does conversation intelligence mean? And then what got you excited about that company? How do you think it's going to scale?
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know Gong, Gong sits as a third party between a salesperson and their customer, listens to the conversation, and helps give feedback back to the salesperson, saying, this is what you guys talked about, this is what you focused, these were the top questions, this is how you answered, and so forth. Essentially, it's a great self-training tool, it's a great team training tool, it's a great way for a sales team to become very efficient at their specific task. So one salesperson from company A may have a very different way of doing things from salesperson B in company B, just because of what they're selling and how they're selling and so forth. So it's a great way for companies to make sure that their salespeople are leveled and are absolutely doing their best work.
Thank you. So Moshe and Yahal, both companies that we're talking about are AI solutions. There's been a lot of focus today on AI. There was a panel earlier this afternoon on AI. I think two of the most promising companies in the EdTech scene in Israel are AI-based. One is Symbolab and the other is Sense. They're both here. The founder of Symbolab said that I believe they have 60 million users on their platform now, helping them solve math problems and enhance their skills. Sense is helping instructors and TAs in universities grade answers to open-ended questions by recognizing patterns and then efficiently providing feedback. Do you believe AI is going to be the most important differentiator in Israel for EdTech startups? And if not, do you see other technologies that also should be relied upon as entrepreneurs are thinking about how to launch successful businesses?
Right. So I think technology is extremely important when it comes to startups in Israel. I think that's what makes Israel so special. It's not about the content, it's not about the go-to-market, it's usually about the technology. So yes, AI is definitely an advanced form of technology, and I do expect to see a lot of technology in every single company that will become successful in this space. You ask if that's the only technology or others. I think that we will get to a point where a machine will know how to teach a person the best, and maybe other technologies will be needed for that. Sensing technologies, visual technologies, and so forth.
Okay, I think we're getting close to running out of time, so I'm going to just move to one or two more subjects, and then we'll close this out. No more time? One more question? Okay, one more question. 1.5 questions. Just Amalia, real quickly, as you know, a lot of the most successful EdTech companies outside of Israel are not really pure technology, they're technology-enabled services. So I believe in my conversations with Yahal and Moshe, their focus is mostly on pure technology. Do you share that focus? Could you see yourself investing in technology-enabled services?
I share the notion that they can bring a lot of value to the solutions, but look at Udemy that you mentioned. it's not a deep technology solution. I agree. So I think it depends. We invested in one company that enable to do a hands-on IT training in collaborative way. So is it a deep technology? No, there is no other solution like that. And it's typical to the Israelis because they had to improvise a lot of solutions together and to bring out something that is unique and very sophisticated in the way, technology-wise, in the way that they put all the parts together. So I think it depends if the technology is not deep, but it enables other learning services. I see Israel is doing that and going very fast to the market as opposed to others. But I do share the notion that we have to here a lot to offer technology-wise. It's, like I mentioned, simulation as well as AI. We have brain research, which is very advanced in Israel, and we can leverage that knowledge with technology. And to be honest, I want technology to be something that is important in the startup because it attracts the right entrepreneur as well. It's interesting for them as well. It's another.
So here's my half question, and then we'll end. We're here because we believe, just like in cybersecurity, irrigation, agriculture, fintech, now automated driving, Israel can become a global leader in EdTech. Do you share that belief and that confidence? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, especially when the technology becomes an unseparated part of learning.
I have a more complex answer, so I don't know if it fits into the half. So I think our differentiation is technology. Our differentiation is to have something that has a huge barrier to entry. We're so far away from the markets. We're not China. We're not the U.S. We have to develop a very different model. What I've seen, most of the not every, but the majority of the EdTech opportunities are business model related. Rather than with technology, but not, a 10x or a 20x type of technology difference. And the other thing is that your market. With what we're familiar with EdTech is most of the education, and not all, of course, is on the public market. Of course, there is private education as well. We heard from China what's going on there. We as investors here do not have that level of experience of selling into the public markets. It's the same, by the way, even though we're very, very strong in security and homeland security aspects. Most of the VCs here do not go in that direction, and a lot has to do with who are your customers.
Amalia, you want to?
So I have to agree. I don't think we should go to the traditional educational market, not at this stage. But I share with Moshe the notion that we can be leader in that field as well. And we should leverage the knowledge of technology, the knowledge of how to learn, how to teach others that we gain.
Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you very much.